At the heart of leading people is not fixing them.
Welcome, everyone, once again to another episode of F5 Collective Presents Women in Business. Today we have the wonderful Joanna Wiesinger with us, and from Thrive with Strengths. I had the incredible opportunity to get to know Joanna by working with her and her learning more about her leadership development journey and how she does so much for so many. And I'm really excited to share her story with you today, or for her to share her story with you today. Actually, I'm not doing it. I mean, what am I going to do? I'm just going to be like the conduit. So Joanna, welcome. And thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Linda. It's my pleasure to be here. I've been looking forward to this.
Yeah, me too. It's I've enjoyed our interactions so very much, and I want to give a major shout out to Kunta Evans for connecting us.
So true.
Yeah,
it all started with Kunta. Yes.
Yeah. So Kunta and Deidre, if you're ever watching this, we are definitely giving you major props for this relationship.
Yes, we are.
So Joanna, tell us, let's just get into it. Tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, where you're from.
I was born and raised in Poland. I came to the United States when I was 16 years old. So right away, you get the first big pivot in my life there, where I moved from a place that felt familiar, was comfortable, to a place that was very unfamiliar to me, where I didn't know the culture, I didn't know the language. So I quickly had to adapt and pay attention to people in a very different way, because the verbal cues meant nothing to me since I didn't speak the language yet for at least the first couple of years. That's when I discovered that chemistry was where I could win regardless of whether I spoke English or not. Chemical formulas, universal language.
Yeah.
And so that was important that I noticed that, because then as I progressed through college, I ended up studying chemistry, again, just following my natural talents and something that I already knew I could win at. I then earned a PhD in inorganic chemistry, thought that I was going to be a chemist for the rest of my life. That didn't happen. I hope we get to talk about that. Yeah. Today, I'm no longer in the lab. Today, I work with leaders and I help them to play to their strengths so that they can lead their teams better and get better results.
So from chemistry and science to this leadership development and coaching journey, what was that? What was that spark that was, okay, I'm not going to be a chemist, I'm going to do this?
I really thought that chemistry was going to be my life. I really enjoyed it. I was good at it. And then life happened, Linda, as it often does. My first son died prematurely. And when Benjamin died, I made myself a promise that if I were to be a mom again, I would commit wholeheartedly and pay my full attention to it, not take it for granted. 3 babies later, that's exactly what happened. So I stayed at home full time.
Wow.
Pivoted away from chemistry for a season, and when it was time to get back to the workplace, the kids were much more independent of school age, I realized that chemistry no longer held my heart. People did, and that was very disorienting. And I know you've pivoted a couple of times. I'm sure many of your listeners have. So you know that point where you look at your resume and you see the success there, and yet it doesn't fit anymore. It so happened at that time a colleague invited my husband and me to take the Clifton Strengths Assessment, which is a Gallup online tool. It identifies in a person their natural talents. I took it, and it was the first time that I audibly exhaled. It's as if someone turned on the lights, and I realized, wait, how have I missed all these beautiful natural talents there are in me? And I all along have been kind of shrugging my shoulders saying, what's the big deal? Doesn't everyone do these things?
Oh, wow.
And so really the question became, okay, if these are my super tools, what would be the best outlet for them? And some of the threads that the assessment identified were something around facilitating, teaching, leading, instructing. From there, it was then just a matter of time that I got my certification. I became a Gallup-Certified Coach, and then within just a few months, I started my company, Thrive with Strengths, where I work with leaders and their teams, and I help them build stronger teams and get better results by playing into what's strong, not wrong with them. So although it seems like a pivot, even when you pose that question, it still takes my breath away. Yeah, how did that happen? But really, I see it as a testimony to strengths-based leadership, which means the very strengths that served me so well in chemistry are serving me really well in leadership development, just in a different way.
Right. Well, it's so, first of all, I'm sorry about your son.
Thank you.
And the journey that we take as parents is always very unique, isn't it? The decisions that we make. And what I'm drawn to so much about what you were talking about is, first of all, spinning the strengths you had within chemistry to work within this, as well as now you've started a company, and I'm assuming had never been an entrepreneur before.
Correct.
And so what was that like for you to find yourself, here you are, you've got these 3 kids, you've done now what was that like?
It was both easy and hard, living in that and space. Yes, can we normalize that we can do that? Easy in the sense that I've always been a fairly confident person. I knew myself very well. I knew I was standing on a body of proof. I can do what I set my mind to. What was hard was that when you're an entrepreneur, there's nowhere to hide. When something doesn't get done, that's on me.
Yeah.
When something goes wrong, that's on me. I can't point to a teammate or pretend that someone else dropped the ball.
Yeah.
That was probably the first and most meaningful lesson that I had to really lean into. The second one was that that idea of leading myself first. So the temptation as I stepped into entrepreneurship of, well, because I don't have many resources yet, I will just do everything myself. And so I absolutely fell into that leadership myth that of a well-rounded leader, right? I will be the marketing director in my company, and I will be the salesperson, and I will set up the systems, and I will deliver the programs to my clients. That's impossible.
Yeah.
It took me probably longer than I cared to admit to pivot, but those lessons are not lost at all, because I'm able to turn around and very much talk about them vulnerably, transparently, and offer them to others who find themselves in a similar place.
Well, it's so funny because I was going to say to you, with all of that, that what have you discovered, and how from, in yourself as you had gone through that journey, and how have you then utilized that in your work with others and how you coach others?
Yeah. So science, at the heart of science is fixing a problem. At the heart of leading people is not fixing them. That just did not translate. And so I had to really spend some time figuring out what that looks like for me. And once again, the fact that I was leaning on strengths-based leadership helped me here. Because at the core of strengths-based leadership, Linda, you know this, is the understanding that we all have our strengths, whether we are aware of them or not. Yeah. And when we get to step into them, we get more productive, we get more engaged, we get more satisfied. And it doesn't mean that we have to do it every minute of every day, but just even 20% of the time, research tells us. And so, as I work with my clients, that is very much what I now am able to pass on to them. Get really clear, understand your strengths. And by strength, I mean not just the things that you're great at, because Linda, you're probably great at many things, but not all of them strengthen you. There are probably many things that you can't wait to give away. Same with me. So my main message to my clients is, let's get clear on what your strengths are, those things that strengthen you, so that you can continually align yourself to them, so that you can lead your people better, so that you can get better results. Funny thing about chemistry and now my role in my clients' lives. So in chemistry, if you go back to Chemistry 101, there's something called a catalyst. And a catalyst is simply the substance that helps makes a reaction happen much easier, lowers the activation energy. So two things can come together and form something new. The beautiful thing about a catalyst is that it doesn't get used up in the process. Whatever amount you put in, you get that amount out. I see myself as a catalyst in the lives of my clients. I don't do the work. I make it easier for them to elevate, to amplify their leadership, or to whatever, hit their goals, or address that relationship that is maybe kind of standing in the way of their success, whatever that might be. There was even, the word catalyst was actually even in my results. When I said it's like someone turned on the light, I used the word catalyst all the time when I was a chemist, but I never saw myself as one until I took that assessment.
So that that points to that unique difference between helping people build on their strengths as opposed to, quote unquote, strengthening their weaknesses, right? So if you can, because what you just said kind of sparks that. It makes you go, oh, that makes total sense. But if you can speak a little bit to the psychology behind that, because that tends to be the usual, right? Let's strengthen your weak, quote unquote, weaknesses, as opposed to let's build upon your strengths.
I want to share a quick little story with you first, and then it will anchor my answer. So I remember one of the first performance reviews as a chemist, my boss gave me kudos for the results, and then said, Joanna, the one thing that I want you to work on is being much more empathetic. Now, I knew Bob was giving me a gift of feedback. I knew that much about him. I trusted him already, a year into us working together. But the more he said, be more empathetic, the less I knew what he meant, because the language of feelings and emotions does not come naturally to me. It's more about ideas and tactics and strategies and such. So I left that meeting, Linda, knowing that I need to become a better leader and a better team member, but I didn't know how. Because telling me that I wasn't empathetic enough, just there was nothing to no practical aspect to it. If Bob were a strengths-based leader, if we both spoke strengths, so to speak, that conversation might have sounded something like this. Joanna, I noticed that you connect with people really easily. You know how to crack the code on them. What drains them, what strengthens them. I want you to use that ability to connect with them more meaningfully. Right now, your interactions are very transactional. And we're building a culture of deep trust and much more relational interactions. If he had said that, I would have known exactly what to do, and I would have felt motivated to do it because he was digging where the treasure was, my talent.
Yeah.
Okay, so now back to answering your question. Strengths-based leadership is really about going with the grain of who the person is. Truly focusing on what's strong, not wrong with them. Why? Because then we get to show up at our best. It never made sense to me to motivate others or even myself by telling myself how lousy I am at something. Now, we're not ignoring weaknesses. We're finding a way to work around them. So we're doubling down on our strengths, all those things that come to us with ease, excellence, and enjoyment, all those things that strengthen us. And then we are working around our weaknesses, giving them away, using our strengths to address them, partnering up, partnering with amazing people like you and others who can fill in my weaknesses so they don't stand in the way of our success.
Yeah, that's brilliant. That's and I know that you not only work with individuals, so one-on-one, you work with teams, and you work with entire corporations. So as you're doing this, and there's a cultural element to that, because it really does speak to strengthening a culture when you work through that. But how do you shift how you work across those different kind of platforms, I guess it is, you know?
Yeah. So I love that you are touching on the culture element, because I often say that strengths is a business strategy. That is because we know that when the culture is a strengths-based culture, the employee engagement goes up to something like 75%. 3 in 4 employees become engaged. And let's just be clear on what an engaged employee does. Shows up at their best. They go an extra mile. They connect to the goals of the organization. They do their best work.
Yeah.
Whereas when leaders do not pay attention to the strengths of their employees, that engagement drops down to single digits, something like 9%. So the way I work with clients is I have a simple process, but that's a very intentional process that mimics what best leaders do. They lead themselves first, they lead their teams next, or they lead others well, and then they lead the business. So the first level of my work is in one-on-one work with leaders, where we bring clarity around their leadership style, what their strengths are, how their strengths help or possibly hinder the impact that they want to have on others, so that we can get rid of the self-doubt, the imposter syndrome, right? All those pesky second-guessing thoughts that can slow us, a leader, down. So that's the first level. The second level of work has to do with leading others. So this is very much about teamwork, lowering that friction that is often present on teams because we misunderstand one another, right? Because what do? We judge ourselves by our intentions. We judge others by their behavior. So if you're asking me a lot of questions and I don't have the time, I'm starting to make up a story that you're annoying and wasting my time, right? Versus thinking about, oh, wait, she's tapping the brakes. She's probably seeing something here that might derail our project, and I'm not even thinking about it. So that's teamwork, and I have several ways of approaching them. The first one is team recalibration, where we very much focus on, we calibrate to what's strong about a team. So clarity, connection. The third level is what I call confidence, and that's about organizational work, really leaders and their teams connecting to the goals of the organization and having the confidence that they can move the needle on the results because they're bringing their best and contributing their best through their strengths.
Yeah. Wow. Well, so this comes up a lot at, especially when you look at it from a corporate level, right? From the group, that bigger organizational level, which is the difference between leadership and management. And what for you would you say? Because it does weirdly, and I think we've even talked about this in the past, it does weirdly affect the culture of your company a lot of times if you aren't very clear about the difference between the leadership and management.
Absolutely, and this is fresh on my mind because I was just with a company where we talked at length about that. Okay. For me, it comes down to focus and vision. And the story that I have in my mind has to do with an insight into my own life. Every Sunday night, my husband and I take my husband to the airport. Every Sunday night, we leave later than we need to, so we're speeding down the highway. He's driving, I'm climbing the walls of the car. And I had this thought of how differently 80 miles an hour feels for the driver versus the passenger. It really does depend on where you sit in the car. My husband is in control, and he tells me that, Joanna, chill, I know what I'm doing, as he is passing the cars, and he knows the direction. He knows why he's making the pivots. He's clear on it. Not so for me. I'm uncertain. I don't know where he is making the moves that he's moving. When we look at leaders versus managers, leaders are in the driver's seat. They have the focus, they have the strategy, they know how fast to go. Managers are the passengers in the car. And the best, really their role is to quickly come up to speed and be just as clear as the leaders are so that they can execute on the vision that the leaders have set. Right. But the key is, in the best organizations, what we see is that the leaders are crystal clear on that strategy so that the managers can execute it. The boots on the ground, right, through their people. Right. They close that gap between the intention and the impact.
Wow. That's it's so funny. I drive a lot. I love to drive. And it's wild to think to yourself, okay, wait a minute. That's really true. Because I know that when I'm a passenger, I'm really on high, but it also depends on who's driving, right?
Absolutely. And that's what I mean. We can't absolve the leaders. Certainly we cannot absolve the leaders. We can't absolve the managers either. It really needs to be a dialogue, and over the process of over communicating, asking questions, being patient with the questions, and really laying out the answers.
Yeah. Now, how long has Thrive with Strengths been Thrive with
Yeah,
Strengths?
this is our 10th year.
Congratulations.
Yes,
Happy
thank you.
anniversary.
Yes, thank you. It's
Oh my
crazy.
gosh.
It's crazy
Wow.
to think about that.
And when you started it, did you have any partners with you, or Joanna, was it just all you?
All me. Um, I remember when I officially founded the company, and my husband looked at me and said, Joanna, you don't even know how hard it will be. And I was so offended by that rude comment. And now I so appreciate what he was saying. That was his way of loving me and saying, yes, you go, girl. I'm supporting you. And also, I'm not sure that you know how hard it will be.
Right.
And maybe it was a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, these days I lean on a support team or other coaches if a bigger project comes along.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm crystal clear. I cannot be a one-man team. I cannot be a well-rounded leader. That is not what successful leaders do.
Right.
So.
Yeah. I was going to ask you, what are the biggest things you've discovered about yourself as you've taken this journey in not only leading others, but helping others to become stronger leaders and to understand what it means to be a good coach or a mentor or whatever. What have you discovered the most about yourself?
I keep going back to what I call the 3 leadership myths, because I fell for every single one of them. And now that's one of the first things that I talk about before we talk about the powerful tools of, getting teams aligned and getting better results. And those 3 myths are: fix what's wrong with you. As it wrong defined by someone else. That's what my boss was doing, Joanna. Fix the fact that you're not as empathetic as Linda on our team. Invest in your weaknesses. That's another leadership myth. Strengths will take care of themselves. And so what do? When a situation comes up that actually aligns with our strengths, we wing it. Because even winging it, we're better than others who are showing up in their gaps.
Yeah.
But the sad aspect of falling for that myth is that we don't build up our superpowers. And we're spending our time trying to grow our weaknesses and take them from sub-average to maybe average at most. And then the third leadership myth is that idea that successful leaders are well-rounded leaders.
Yeah.
And I bet, if I asked your listeners to think of a leader who has been impactful in their lives, that leader wasn't well-rounded.
Yep.
That leader taught them maybe how to build trust quickly and meaningfully, or how to think strategically in a way that no one around them could even come close to.
Right.
So I fell for every one of those, and that was probably where my biggest lessons were. I found out many different ways that my own strengths that I celebrated so much also at times would stand in the way of my success because they were unregulated. I'll give you an example. One of my talents, and in the strengths language, it's a theme we call maximizer. And leaders with maximizer are leaders who naturally have the ability to spot strengths in others. They celebrate excellence, and they naturally know, listen, let me not worry about my weaknesses. Let me run in my lane. and only, and hire out what I'm not good at.
Mm-hmm.
I can, if my maximizer unchecked, Linda, I can spend 3 hours tweaking the font on my PowerPoint.
Oh my gosh.
Because it feels so good to be in this space where, just a little tweak. I know it's good enough, but I can kick it up to excellent. And it was my husband who many years ago, pretty early on, my biggest cheerleader said, "Hey, Joanna, let's do the math on how much profit you're earning on that client that you just are charging a certain amount of money, but you have spent 3 hours tweaking the font that they won't even notice, frankly." That was such an eye-opening and humbling experience. But where I'm heading with it, I love my talents of maximizer. They make me the coach that I am. I know that for a fact. But unregulated and dialed up, full on, like a knob that's dialed up on your gas grill.
Mm-hmm.
They stood in the way of my success. Literally, I was draining money down the drain, flushing money down the drain.
Yeah. That sounds so familiar. The smile you probably saw, it was so familiar because I am one of those people that if I write a Post-it to leave for someone, I look at it, I think, I don't like how the handwriting is on that. I'm going to take that off. I'm going to rewrite. That word. Okay, hold on. And I have to do the same thing where I stop. Okay, hold on a minute. Hold on. Okay, was it really worth that much time? Because, take a second, I guarantee they don't care. They don't care. You're just spinning your wheels. I so get it. Oh my gosh, Joanna.
I did not know that about you, Linda. High five to you, my friend. I will show you. So I'm reaching over here. So this is a $7 timer that I got on Amazon that has helped me curb my maximizer.
Oh, wow.
So when these days, let's go back to my example of a PowerPoint. If I'm working on a PowerPoint, I will set it, let's say, for 30 minutes. And when that timer goes off, I stop. And it feels like dying 1,000 deaths to this day. And it also feels really good. Because I know.
Oh, yeah. I'm so doing that.
Okay, good.
Yes, thank you so much. It is the weirdest thing. It is, okay, this is great. It's great to hear somebody else say that. Because I'm like, I'm not alone. I mean,
you are not alone. You're not alone. And at some point you and I can talk about how those very talents have probably very much contributed to your success in so many different areas in your writing.
It's true. That is true. Yeah. Wow. That's so cool. Now you deal with, well, just like right there. So the choice that you made in your doing, starting Thrive with Strengths was to engage, which is so interesting that your former boss talked about your lack of empathy, was to engage with people in a very immersive way. How has that been for you, and how do you navigate that? Because there's a lot of different personalities that you need to deal with, and with Thrive with Strengths, it's also, I am assuming, gaining insight into those strengths so you navigate that well.
I think if I pull it back to what motivates me to show up, it's about love with a good dose of frustration. So I love that moment when a leader is willing to be vulnerable, unzips their heart in my presence, and I don't ever take that lightly. I know how difficult that is for many.
Yeah.
and they're willing to examine all those pesky thoughts that are standing in the way of their success. And often the reason is because they don't identify, they don't understand their natural talents. And two things happen when we don't understand our natural talents. Because our talents are simply, they're not good, they're not bad, they're neutral. They're simply a natural pattern of thinking, feeling, and behaving. Yeah. But once we know them, the way you and I just had a mini coaching session, right? Once we know them, then we know how to intentionally and strategically invest in them. And it could be as simple as a timer. When we don't know them, then they can hijack us and stand in the way of our success. So that's really, when I say love with a dose of frustration, my love of seeing a leader walk out of the program more confident and more clear on who they are, what their leadership style is, because then that will allow them to then get curious about the strengths of the people they lead and setting them up, aligning them to the right role.
Yeah.
The frustration for me is when a leader does two things. One, dismisses their strengths as nothing important. So that shrug of the shoulder that I did early on, like, what's so special about that?
Yeah.
Because that's actually, it's not self-indulgent. It's responsible of us to know our talents and to invest in them. And two, what's frustrating to me is when a leader tries to fix their people. It's hardly ever about someone being lazy or disengaged for no reason at all. What I've observed, it's typically around misalignment of talent. Someone has been plunked into a position that simply does not fit to their talents.
Yeah.
So misalignment.
Yeah. I was, this brings up a really interesting point, because it makes me think of, what have been some of your biggest challenges that you faced as you've started down this, leadership development and coaching support journey, and how have you overcome them?
Challenges. Tell me a little bit more.
So as you started the business and you really wanted to get because as we've talked about, that whole idea of leading from strengths as opposed to strengthening the weaknesses, it's once you understand it, it makes total sense. But it's like that thing when we give feedback to people and we learn, hopefully we learn, it's okay to celebrate their successes as much as point out the things that they need to work on, you got to do both. So I'm just curious what kind of either challenges or hurdles you had to overcome to kind of get this out there and really start to build your business and get people to fully understand the beauty, truly, of taking this path.
That's a really good point, and I appreciate your question because I think I have forgotten how difficult it was at the beginning. Again, because in many ways, this approach really flies in the face of what we're so used to, right? You're not good at this. Let's send you to another course. Let's remedial course where you can shore up your weaknesses. So many times I will come across, or I'll be sitting across a leader who, first of all, thinks that maybe this initial assessment, because in my program, Linda, there's a simple three-step process that we follow, where the first step is always taking the assessment. 40 minutes, identifies the talents, and that's the anchor, kind of the North Star that anchors our conversations around amplifying the leadership. So oftentimes there's even a resistance around taking the assessment because there are so many assessments out there.
Yeah.
Because maybe they come from a culture where their strengths were almost weaponized against them.
Mm-hmm.
There's the vulnerability issue. So absolutely, I have to find a way, and I have found a way to address them
Mm-hmm.
and to pull them in. And this is where my own strengths really, really help me. I often say, give me 5 minutes with anyone, and I'll have a pretty good hypothesis on what fires them up and maybe what drains them. Obviously limited, but directionally,
Right.
again, a natural talent. So I would say there's definitely something around lowering that friction of, is this really worth it?
Mm-hmm.
And then the challenge of convincing them. and of course, I don't do the convincing. I just say, hey, would you just practice it and then observe yourself? Observe the impact that you're having on your people around, again, don't worry about your weaknesses for now. Make it very explicit. Make your leadership style very explicit. So, if I have a leader who's very relational, I nudge them to talk about it. So let's say if I'm that leader and you're a new team member, it might sound like, Linda, as we start to work together, you have to know something about me. I care about people. So every time we get together for our one-on-one, I will ask you how you're doing. And that's not a trite giveaway for me. I really want to know. It seemed that took me 10, 15 seconds.
Yeah.
So powerful. If it's a strategic leader, it's so important for strategic leaders to be explicit about the process they use to make decisions. Oftentimes, it anchors around being silent, gathering data, processing, looking somber. Oftentimes, it's around asking questions.
Yeah.
They can absolutely come across as critical and negative.
Yeah.
But, again, if you are a new team member or a peer who's going to work with me, and I'm that strategic thinking leader, I might say to you, here's something you need to know about me. When I'm quiet, it's not because I'm angry with you or disengaged. I'm gathering data. I'm thinking through my options. Interrupt me anytime, I'll answer your questions. And all of a sudden, right, again, that audible exhale almost, I see the shift that happens in teams.
Yeah. That understanding of the person that you're engaging with, right? Because I think we forget as human beings that, just as our relationships with the people in our personal lives are different, right? We're not the same with every person that is with us. People that we work with are also human beings that have different ways of working and being, and how they like to be approached or how they approach others. And so navigating that and understanding that's very cool. What's next for Thrive with Strengths, Joanna?
Yeah, in the true maximizer fashion, it's more of what's working, right? Building, polishing the pearl, so to speak. So very much more of what we're already doing, helping leaders show up with greater clarity, connection, and confidence.
Yeah.
More speaking engagements. I am finding myself really enjoying coming, maybe doing webinars, or as I was at a summit just a couple of weeks ago, all of those in person, because so much of my work really is virtual.
Yeah.
In person is very exciting. I have some fun collaborations in place as well. Some that are geared towards women specifically.
Nice.
So yeah, and who knows? I'm always open to new doors, new opportunities. Yeah.
Well, I love that. Well, do you have any last thoughts you would like to share?
Yeah. No, I don't. I don't think so. Other than it just excites me to have opportunities like you're giving me right now to spread the word.
Yeah.
That best leaders, they don't become one. They don't fall into the trap of trying to fit into a mold that was never even meant for them.
Yeah.
They are very intentional of becoming more of who they already are. So it's never about shirking the responsibility of investment and growth, but it is about building on what they already are good at, and becoming even more of that.
That's great. That's great. And I also like the as you were speaking about a leader, that fallibility that we are able to show others, to show we're not perfect, and then that makes us accessible humans, right? That whole idea of, oh my gosh, okay, so you feel that way too. Like that moment that we just had of, oh man, I do that exact same thing. So it helps us connect and feel seen and heard.
Absolutely. And here's the thing that we maybe forget. If you and I are working together, if we work together for any amount of time, you would quickly recognize the things that I'm not good at, and maybe how my maximizer hijacks me from time to time. To your point of the power of, again, being explicit about not hiding our weaknesses, not hiding what we're not good at, but rather saying, hey, Linda, this project does not excite me. I will do it if that is what you want me to do, but here's what I want you to keep in mind. I'm not the first person to push it across the finish line, right? I'll do it. I'm going to be a good team member, but I think that, Kate down the office would be much better at it.
Yeah.
So having absolutely being heard, seen, appreciated, this whole idea, we haven't even talked about this whole idea of how recognition, for example, takes on a completely different meaning. It becomes a lever of success, really.
Yeah.
If you anchor it around strengths-based leadership. Because then we shift from, good job, Linda, good podcast, to, Linda, thank you for inviting me to your podcast. You created a safe place for me to be completely myself. You asked me excellent questions that made me reflect ahead of time. That's a gift. Keep doing that. I value that in our collaborations. And all of a sudden, I've given you a blueprint of what I want more of so that you can get the best out of me.
Yeah.
If every manager, every leader did that more often, we would have organizations, teams, workplaces where every one of us could show up at our best and contribute and thrive. I really believe that.
Yeah. I agree wholeheartedly. It's the difference between it just speaks to everything you're doing. It's the difference between, you got to work on this, and let's celebrate this. Thank you for this. Yeah. And it also, I loved what you were saying as far as recognizing another team member who may be more suited for something. It's that way of being able to build and strengthen your team by acknowledging what each of you brings to the table and then supporting that. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. It's great. Joanna. Ooh. Okay, this is giving me, I love this. It's giving me tingles.
Love it.
So now we're going to do the founder deep dive.
Okay.
Are you ready for that? And I have
I
to
am.
read it because it's brand new for us, and I'm going to just read it.
Okay.
So, first part, what would you do if someone suddenly gave you $500,000?
$500,000 would go a long way in education. And let me give you a little bit of context why my mind is going there.
Ooh, okay.
Every August here in the United States, I do strengths-based professional development on school campuses. So I come in, and campuses of 70 to 80 staff members, elementary schools, middle schools, high schools, gather together. Everyone takes the Clifton Strengths Assessment, and then I hold a half a day training with them, so that we set up these amazing humans who do the hardest work in our society, so that they can be really dialed in what it is that they bring to the students and to their team members, and that the teams themselves, the fifth grade teachers, let's say, that they are really locked in and on the same place and really aligned. So I was thinking, as you asked that question, how now I charge, but if I didn't have to charge, that would be just a fantastic way to bring strengths-based leadership to both the students and the staff, and generously share that across the country.
Wow. Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Okay. Woo. You're so right about educators. You're so, man. What is one financial or any reality of building your business that rarely gets talked about?
I'm not sure that it doesn't get talked about, but maybe we're not still doing it well enough, which is know your numbers.
Oh.
Know your numbers. And if you're not a number person, that's okay. Hire someone who is really good at numbers, and you just get, simplify it for yourself.
Yeah, that's big.
But do a check-in.
Yeah. And I think you're right. I think it's probably talked about, but it still is incredibly overlooked, right? Because it goes back to that idea of when you're starting, that whole idea that you were saying, you feel like you have to do it all and know it all. And that's just not possible.
Yeah, and I mean, anything that doesn't get measured can be grown and can be improved, right? And so this is really step number one.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Woo. Now, before you started the company, how did you decide to take the leap to seek outside capital? And I'm assuming, I don't know how you did your funding, but how did you decide to take that leap?
So I'm a slightly different, maybe, case data point from many of the entrepreneurs that you interview. I did not have to raise capital because, by virtue of the model that I follow, it's minimal investment. But to the question of how I took the leap, it goes back to two things. One, again, lights turn on. All of a sudden, I realized, there is no other option for me. I must step into a better alignment to my strengths, and coaching was a natural progression, continuation of that. And by virtue of my strengths, I have these natural talents of urgency and impatience.
Mm-hmm.
I will say yes to just about anything at least once. I'll try it. And so that leap from, I think this is what I should do, to actually doing it, it came relatively easy to me, to the point, again, my husband saying, you don't even know how hard it will be. And he was right. But it was a blessing in disguise.
Yeah. Yeah.
That unction of, I don't want to do anything else.
Yeah.
I'll figure it out.
Yeah. Wow. Well, the next one is, what fears did you have to overcome? Or did you even have any?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Ouch. Fear of failure, for sure.
Yeah.
And that's still very much on the table. I have found a way to work around it. I recognize it much more quickly. And so that fear of failure, what it did, it would keep me in that place of tweaking things until they were perfect and not progressing forward fast enough.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not recognizing that the best leaders are the ones who fail fast, because they get they're always collecting immediate feedback, right? If I'm offering a 3-session one-on-one coaching and you, Linda, say, 3 sessions, that's not enough. That's immediate feedback. That's very valuable to me. But I would get stuck in perfecting the 3-session package, only to find out that no one wanted it, maybe. You know.
Yeah, I get. Oh, okay. Now, instead of doing this, was there something else that you almost did instead of taking the leap to start Thrive with Strengths?
I didn't, honestly.
Yeah.
And even as I say that out loud, I'm surprised. Now, what I am remembering is that place of discomfort, almost pain of, what do I do now that I want to get back to the workplace, but chemistry is no longer the thing that holds my heart, where I want, that I'm passionate about. That point I still remember. That was a very difficult point, and it wasn't just a day. It was months of grappling with it, months of trying to figure out what the next best outlet for me would be.
Wow. Oh my goodness. Yeah, that is quite the place to be, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But without it, right? Without the mucky-muck waters of working through it, I think it's much more difficult to come to the clarity of the next step.
Yeah. You have to go through to get to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, truthfully. Okay. Mm-hmm. Oh, that's awesome. Okay, so are you ready for your BizFit Minute?
Oh, sure. Yes.
Yay.
Yes.
Okay, so
the topic I've chosen is how to thrive, not just survive, when you're building or scaling a business. Number 1, lead yourself first. If you can't manage your time, your energy, and your mindset, don't expect your business to perform any better than you do. Number 2, invest in yourself. You're the ceiling. The more clarity you have about how you work best, the less space there's for self-doubt, second-guessing, and that pesky imposter syndrome. Number 3, build systems early. Even the simple ones will do. James Clear reminds us that we don't rise to our goals, we fall to the levels of our systems. If your business only works when you show up, you don't have a business, you have a job. Number 4, play to your strengths. Do more of what you're naturally good at what strengthens you, what comes to you with ease, excellence, and enjoyment. Then bring in people who are strong at what you're not. Build a well-rounded team. That's how you scale. And number 5, move faster than you feel ready. Perfection is expensive. You don't need perfect, you need progress. Business owners who win are the ones who fail fast because they get that immediate feedback on what's working and what's not.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Wow, that was awesome. Okay, so we're going to do the rapid 5.
Oh,
right?
That's right. Yes. I forgot. And those were fun ones.
Those are fun ones.
They made me chuckle. Yes, thank you.
Okay, so what did you want to be when you grew up?
I thought I was a princess for the first 7 years of my life. My grandfather was a mayor of Krakow. Remember, I was born and raised in Poland. And so in my 7-year-old mind, he was a king and I was a princess. That made it official. Past that, I was thinking how I grew up with parents who were science professors. And so
wow.
I vividly remember sitting in the front row of their lecture halls and kind of soaking in that idea of speaking in front of an audience.
Wow.
That was always within me. And so here I am. The role has changed, but the audience part is still very much a part of me.
That's so cool. I love that. What always makes you smile?
Excellence and passion. And that goes for my grandkids as I watch them and they have just mastered some new skill that comes so easily to us now. And the grit, the resilience, the passion, the celebration. And goes from grandkids all the way to maybe an 80-year-old runner down the street who's still moving their bodies and perfecting their stride. And I've been known to roll down my windows and cheer them on, right? Because again, that pursuit of excellence and passion is something that I will never get tired of.
Oh, wow. That's beautiful. What do you know now that you wish you knew as a kid?
The importance of playfulness. Playfulness and creativity go hand in hand, and yet somewhere along the way, so many of us, I won't say all of us as adults, but many of us lose that idea of playfulness. And again, I'm reminded of it because I spend quite a bit of time with my grandbabies, and I see how creative they are, how encumbered they are, how free of fear. They're just playful. And so I've really been challenging myself to set aside that idea of perfection and really pull it back to playfulness. I will even say it in coaching sessions just as much for my clients as for me. Let's just be playful with this idea. Let's see where we get there.
Yeah. That's lovely. What is your guilty pleasure?
My guilty pleasure is a Twix bar. So fun fact, it was the very first candy bar that I was introduced to when I came to the United States.
Gosh.
So there's this sentimental, value to it. But I eat very healthfully. I'm very mindful. As a chemist, I'm very mindful of what's a real, natural ingredient versus a chemical.
Right.
But when it comes to Twix bars, I'm the first one to admit I'm a hypocrite. I will eat one anytime someone shares it with me.
Is it the traditional Twix bar, or is it the different kind of just?
I don't think I'm picky, but traditional is probably what kind of stirs up the first bite memory.
That's perfect. Okay, and the last one, cat or dog?
Neither. Never had any pets. My husband and I have never had any pets.
Okay.
I enjoy them in someone else's home. I know you are a wonderful mama to some furry animals. It's not anything that I aspire to.
Got it. No problem. My mom was the same way. So she was okay. And as soon as she didn't have to have kids in the house that wanted pets, she was like, great, thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm very curious what my kids will do, because obviously they never grew up with any of them. So far, I'm not seeing any pets, but you never know.
You never do. Oh, Joanna, thank you so much for joining us today. This has been lovely, and I really appreciate you sharing and taking the time. And I'd love to come back to you maybe in a year or so and see what's up and just catch back up again.
Thank you, Linda. I mean it when I say those questions were a gift to me. We are so busy working in the business that we don't have much time to reflect, to remember the hard beginnings, the victories along the way. So you've really given me a gift to remember those moments, to maybe dial in a little bit more even to my victories and build on them. And I would love to come back in a year and see how much I've progressed.
Love it. Thank you. And to everybody else out there, welcome again. Thank you again for joining us. We have a link in the description below to Thrive with Strengths. Please go to Joanna's website. She has incredible collaborations and opportunities to strengthen you and your team and your entire organization. So we really hope you check it out, and we will see you at our next episode. Thank you again, everybody.